Hi, Ernie. Hi, Ernie.
Ernie, was machst du?
So I have the learning today, right now, to go for refuah shlema for Tzvi Reisman.
Oh my,
He's right now undergoing neurosurgery at
oh my.
right now,
What happened?
going in. He fell 3 weeks ago, and
Oh my.
he hasn't been feeling well. He's been limping and walking funny. I saw him in the office for the urology, and so they took him today, his doctor, they did a CT scan, and he had some bleeding on the brain.
Oh
Oh,
my.
yeah.
Oh my.
Chronic
Hi.
subdural hematosis. All I have to do is release the bleeding from his brain. He'll be fine.
Oh wow. Wow.
Wow.
Right
It's
now.
not good. Not good.
He's gonna be fine.
Bushman.
He's gonna be fine.
Bushman.
In the ICU for a few days.
Yeah.
In the ICU for a few days. They don't have to make a big incision.
Who's this? Who's the surgeon?
The guy at Cedars.
You have access to go there? You don't have any rights to go there, right?
I'm not stuff there.
You just go as a.
First time.
Just
What's his Hebrew name?
Tzvi Chai Ben Alina.
Tzvi Ben Elena.
Elena.
Is Keith Black the neurosurgeon? Who's the neurosurgeon?
His name is Patil, something like that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. We're on Tes Omad Aleph. Famous sugya. Ha'omer Pesach Pasuach Motzasi. The husband is marrying a basula, and during the bia, he senses that she was not a basula. Rashi says, the basic question is, well, what about the blood? So he doesn't have any taina regarding blood. Taina is dami mein lo. There was a certain known family where their women didn't have blood. Oh, that means if he has a sheet that they slept on, and he brings it to Bezdin and shows no blood, so that's objective proof to his claim that she wasn't a besula. But this mappa got lost, so he doesn't have a tainus dam. Lo yoda im hayadamim lo, or he doesn't know if there was blood. Aval zos grura lo she pesach pasuach matzah, but he thinks that she had an opening that was open, that was more open than should have been as a basula. Neman la osra alav. Now, in the time of Chazal, they were given kiddushin 6 months before they got married. So there was a long interval that she was an Eshes Ish. So if a woman is mizaneh, tachtav, if a man's wife sleeps with another man while he's married to her, so it's asr labal, asr laboya. He can never live with his wife anymore, and she can't even live with the person that she committed adultery with. So the assumption is that she was mezaneh while she was makudish to him. We don't know that for sure. And maybe she had znus when she was a pnuya, when she's not an Eshes Ish. So the Gemara is going to ask why she should be usher. But anyone, he's at least. Yes, sir. I'm teaching Daf Yomi right now. What's going on? I'll tell you in a minute. Okay. I will call you back when I'm done here. Okay.
Why can't we say that she had an accident before? Why can't she tie to that?
Let's read Rashi. Neman la'otra alav. Afal pi she'ena davar zayochel isbor el al piv. There's no other aid. It's just based on him. At least legabe nafshe, regarding him, havi mehemen l'shavya alei chaticha disura. He can make her a shtick isser for him. La'afsida ksuba salomeh. But to cause her to lose her monetary ksuba based on his own testimony, of course, that doesn't happen. If there were Eidim who come and say that she was mazaneh as an Eishasish, then of course she would lose her ksuba. But based on what he says, we don't cause her to lose her ksuba. But he's Eid Echad is Neman Bisurin. He can make her osir to him. Freit the Gemara of Amai. Sveik sveikahu. It's a double suffix, meaning we know the rule midoraisa, suffix midoraisa l'chumra, suffix midrabanon l'kula. You have a piece of meat in front of you, you don't know it's kosher, it's not kosher. Kosher meat is a deraisa dikadin. So if you don't know what it is, you're not allowed to eat it. Chicken and milk, which is a drabanon, and you don't know what's going on, so you could go lakula. Now, Eishasish is deraisa. So if there's one suffix, fine. I understand why there would be an isser. But here you have two suffix. What's the two suffix? Suffix tachtav, suffix ain't tachtav. He doesn't know for sure whether you're. Now, we don't know whether she had relations while she was an Eishasish in the 6 months that she was Makadish to him, or maybe she had relations before. And she would not be osir to him if she was a Ba'ula as a Pnuya. So that's one suffix. Now, hi, Johnny. A Jewish girl who's married, if she's raped, so she doesn't become usher to her husband. So we don't know if she was beratzon in the znus. So you have two suffix, suffix ones, suffix lo tachtov. So why should he be able to usher her? Lo tzricha be'eshes kohen. Gemara has an easy answer. It's a wife of a kohen. By the wife of a regular Yisrael, he can't usher her because it's a sveka. But a kohen, the year doesn't make a difference if a woman was raped. I want to again. We're learning right now. We're learning for the refuah shlema of Tzvi Chaim ben Helena. Tzvi Reisman's undergoing neurosurgery right now as we speak. He fell and he had a little bleed on his brain, subdural hematoma. So the neurosurgeon is making a little burr hole to take it out. He'll be okay.
Ernie.
Yes.
I have somebody Choshev wants to ask you a kasha. Yeah, okay. Marvin wants to ask you, how come you don't have by the woman can say, listen, I wasn't.
Well, we're going to see if the Rishonim explain that if the Isha is makrisha, if she goes against what he says, and this nemanus is only when the woman opposes it and says that, no, she's a basula, and the Baal is making this up, or if she's quiet and she doesn't say anything, so then we have the din that she's also, but if she explains that she was raped, or she had relations when she was a pnuya, or she was riding a bicycle, so she's believed. And not just for Mominus Inyan, but even regarding this Isser Inyan. And she would not be Usser if she's Makish directly. So Marvin's correct. The only time we say that he makes him a shtik shavya nafshe chaticha yisura is if either she's quiet,
But isn't she not gay, but
or for example, she claims she's a basula, and he is claiming she's not a basula. So then al safek, then we deal with the safek. He could ask her, but as a fake, no. So we said by an Ashes Koyen, there is no fake. There's only one suffix because a Kohen can't live with his wife if she was raped. So it would only be suffix tachtav, suffix lo tachtav. And then,
Yeah, but if she had an accident, then the Kohen is mutter, no? If she had an accident, then the Kohen would be permitted to her.
You're correct. It's only
She's still a basula, even though she lost her.
She's not a basula, but she's not a ba'ula. She's
Not a ba'ula.
And therefore, the Ashes Kohen would not have a problem if she was a mukaseh. So lo tzricha be'Ashes Kohen. That's one pshat. The boy sema be'Ashes Yisrael. There is an example where by Ashes Yisrael he could make her answer to him. Could go on to kabel ba'avua kiddushin b'chutz mibashol shav yom echad. Midoraisa, a father can accept kesef kiddushin from somebody, b'makadesh his daughter to another man, and that is marriage midoraisa. However, prior to the age of 3, it's considered bia that happens is not a full bia because it's not considered halachic bia, and therefore it will never be a case of he accepts the there's no suffix that it happened after kiddushin. Because any bia that happened that would be real bia would be after 3, and she was already mekudeshes before 3. So again, we'd only have one suffix, oines or watzon. If you only have one suffix, then you would have an isser. Freik the gemor my kamash malon. Now, the fact that now you've taught me that a single person is neman to prohibit something that normally is permitted to him because of his testimony. That's what we've learned, that he can make her a chaticha nafshe di surah based on his own testimony. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? We already know that, Tanina. Ha'omer li isha kidashticha. Man says to a woman, I gave you kiddushin. Vihi omeret lo kidashtani. And the woman says, what are you talking about? You never gave me kiddushin. And there's no edim to say what the truth is. The din is, he muteres bekroivav. She can marry his relatives, his brother, his father, because he's never. We believe her that she was never married to him. When you're married to somebody, you are prohibited to marry his relatives. So she's believed, and v'hu aser bekroivoseha. By him just saying, I gave her kiddushin, he cannot now marry his sister, the woman's sister, the woman's mother, the woman's daughter. So the same thing. He created prohibitions just with his mouth. So that's the Gemara's question. My kamashlam, we already learned this. Oh, now the same awesome, the vade kimle. There, his taina is a taina vadai. He knows he gave her kiddushin. So there, you might think, you understand why he can aser. Aval hacha, mekum hu de lo kimle. You listen, not everybody is expert that when they have relations, he knows whether she was open, she was tight, she was closed. You might say men don't know what they're talking about. And maybe there'd be a havamina, we wouldn't believe him. Kamash Malon, we believe him. That's the chiddush of Rabbi Lazar's statement of Pesach Pasuach Matzasi, Neman Lo Oisra Allah. Okay, that's where we are so far. Freik the Gemara. By the way, tomorrow we'll learn in Shul at 6:30, right? The regular time in the Kolenu, in person. So Johnny and Harold and Mario and Kenny, let Kenny know, and Walter will pick me up.
Time tomorrow?
Say it again.
Time?
6:30.
Okay, good.
Yeah, 6:30 at the shul. And then the Navi Shir will be at 9:30. We will have a Navi Shir this week before we leave.
Right.
Amar Lazar Hachi. Now, the Gemara says like this. Umi Amar Rabbi Lazar Hachi? Did Rabbi Lazar say that a person can ask her like this? V'amar Rabbi Lazar. Ein ha'isha neseres al baila ela aliske kinoi sasira. A man is only going to be asked to live with his wife, like in a sota case. A sota case is he warns his wife in front of two Eidim not to sequester herself with a certain man, with Chaim Yankel. And then two Eidim come and say, yeah, we saw Chaim Yankel and this woman go into a room alone. We don't know what happened in the room, but they were misyachet. That's called kinui usasira. So Rabbi Lazar has made a statement that then a husband cannot live with his wife until he takes her up to the Beis HaMikdash and makes her drink the sota waters to prove what happened in that room. She claims I'm innocent. I didn't sleep with him. So if she drinks the water, she'll come out clean if she was innocent. Then he can live with her again. But basically the Gemara is saying that's the only circumstance that Rabbi Lazar would assert, and not just a case of saying Pesach Pasuach. Then he says, Ukemaisa Shahaya. Now, what's this Maisa of Shahaya? Look at Rashi, the Basheva, David u Basheva. Where there, the thought is that she was an Eshes Ish when David slept with her. And Lechora, we're going to see that it's considered, that why do they just say Maisa Shahaya? Why don't they say Maisa David u Basheva? So the Rabbeinu Hananel says it's Lekavod David, that they didn't want to publicize it more. Now, in the case of David, everyone knew that Bathsheba's was an Eshes Ish, and everybody knew that David had slept with her. So there were Eidim. It wasn't Eid Echad saying Pesach Pasuach Matzasi. So the Gemara is asking, where did Rabbi Lazar come up with this? He himself said it doesn't work that way. Afraid the Gemara v'tizbar ma'aser shai b'kinos d'sira hava. So first of all, the Gemara says the mice of David Basheva, there was no kino yisasira there. There was no, somebody warned David not to sequester with this woman, and none of this happened. That's number one. V'od miyasrua. There was no isser for Basheva to go and live either with his Uriah or with David. Remember, we learned last week in the Navi Shir, David sent Uriah multiple times to go home and have relations with, because he wanted to hide the fact that she was pregnant. If she got pregnant, they wouldn't think it was from him. And if so, remember, if you're mizana with an Eshes Ish, it's osir labal, osir laboya. She can never live with her husband. She can never live with the person who had adultery with her. Well, we know eventually David married Bathsheba. So there was no isser that happened with this. So what do you tell me, Ma'aser Shahaya? So the Gemara says, Haloi kasha hachi kama. This is what the statement of Rabbi Lazar is. Eina isha nesres al baila ela al iske kinui usasira. On issues, Rashi, Eina isha nesres al baila al iske kinui usasira Ma'aser Shahaya. Ma'aser de Basheva anu lemedim king shelo hayasham kinui usasira v'lasrua. In fact, since there was no kinui usasira there, that's why there was no isser. We might say shayad the law of kinui usasira below isra. Mikol makom kasha. We're still left with a problem with Rabbi Lazar, because Kinui Sasira in Pesach Pasuach Lo. We started off today's learning by saying Amr Belazar, Pesach Pasuach Matzasi Neman Lo Israel. But we have a statement in Rabbi Lazar that there's only going to be an Isser if there was Kinui Sasira. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? That's the only case that there's going to be an Isser L'tamech. Kinui Sasira in Eidim Lo? What if two Eidim came and said, we looked in the window and this woman was having relations with this guy, Chaim Yankel? Of course, we would accept that as Eidus and Beis Din, and she would be Asr Labal, Asr Laboyel. So it's not just Kinui Sasira that's going to Asr. Elahachi Kamar. We have to amend again what Rabbi Lazar said. Ein Aisha ne'aseres al baila be'ed echad el b'shnei edim. That means, if there was one man who looked in the window and saw that there was nus going on, that one aid cannot ask her husband from living with his wife. If there were two, yes. Now there's an exception to the din of eid echad. If the kino is a sira, I feel be'ed echad nami. Listen to this. If there was a husband who warned his wife in front of two eidim, don't sequester with Chaim Yankel. And then there were two eidim that saw them go into a room alone with Chaim Yankel. And then there's one aid who looked in a window and saw them having relations. That's enough. That means with Kinui Sasira, Eid Echad will be believed. That's what he said. And then the kicker, Upesach Pasuach Kishnei Eidim Damu. When a man, after having relations with his wife, feels that she was not a Basula, but a Ba'ula, that's as if Shnei Eidim came. And which we said, Shnei Eidim works to Asr. Now, the Chitev Ma'aser Shayim Vein Malo Asrua. So the question is like this. You ask the question, by David and Bathsheba, why didn't they Asr? So the Gemara gives another answer, because we gave another answer, there was no Kinui Sasira. The Gemara gives another answer, Hasam Oinesave. She didn't agree. Bathsheba was like raped. And therefore, she wouldn't have been Asr. Now that's a problem answer. That would be why she would be Asr maybe with her husband. But since she was Nation Z, she would be husband, it would be Asr to David, the boya. So the Gemara gives it, whenever you have any boy famous, because the Gemara really doesn't like the answer. And this is the answer that those of us in the Navi Shir began learning last week. When Uri Achiti went to battle, which was a year before Maisa, Bathsheba, or 9 months before, he wrote her a divorce. And therefore, and then according to Rashi, it was a get al t'nai. We see that because it says she im yamos b'mochama ye get b'yom ksiva. So it's a retroactive get, because he says if I don't come back within 12 months, then me'achshav you should be divorced. And Uriah died. So if they dated it January 1, 2000, and he died June 2000, then the divorce is retroactive from June 1. And David slept with her March 1, when she was not an Eshes Isha anymore, because retroactively she was divorced. Tosfos argues here and says it's Kasha Rabbeinu Tam. He gave her a full get. There was no get out tonight. So I mentioned last in the Navi Shir, Machlokas Rashi and Tosfos. It's here. It's in this sugya. But either way, according to either it's a full get or get out tonight, she wasn't an Eshes Ish. Now, when Shaul was fighting Goliath, and Yishai, David's father, sent the brothers to Shaul's army, there also, it says that the brothers take their aruba. Pick up the gets, or take the get that your brothers wrote that broke the relationship between them and their wives. So even before Malchus Beis David, even in the time of Shaul, there was already minig to give a get. So therefore, she was not married. She was a grusha. And therefore, there's no issur for David to marry her or even to go back to her original husband. Okay. Amar Abaya afanana mitamina. Psula nizas yom ravi. Psula marries Wednesday. Yom Ravi in. Yom Chamishi lo. She doesn't get married on Thursday. Why? Mishum Ikuradaita. We were worried because Bezdin doesn't meet again until Monday. It'll be Thursday, Friday, Saturday. He's going to cool off. He's not going to be angry. He's not going to take her to din. That's why we wanted Wednesday. So if he has a problem with Basulim, he can come Thursday morning to Bezdin. Ulamai. Now, for what issue is he going to take her to Bezdin? Ilames of Laksuba. It's, let's say we're concerned he's not going to take her to din. And he wants to get rid of her. So he gives her the ksuba as a basula. So what's wrong? So fine. Divorce her, give her, why should the Chacham have a problem with that? Lesavla. Nah, Ela Oisrala. What his claim is, she was not a basula, and she's also to me. Udikatoin Taina. My love, the Katoin Taina is Pesach Pasuach. What Taina is he claiming? He's claiming that he didn't find her, that she was a basula when I slept with her. And we're dealing with asering. So this seems to support what Rabbi Lazar said, Pesach Pasuach Matzasi, he's Neman. Someone says, no, Ketoin Tan is Damim. The claim is that he didn't find blood. That's enough to aser. But we don't know yet whether his feeling during relations that she wasn't open, is that enough to rely on to allow him to aser himself on her. Now, Rabbi Lazar said that a man who says Pesach Pasuach Matzasi, he's only believed to aser himself that he can't live with her, but not to deny her monetary rights to the ksuba. Shmuel takes it one step further, that if he claims she was not a basula, he can, through his one testimony himself, Rashi says, why is he believed? Chazaka in Adam Torech B'Sudim Afsida. This man just spent $100,000 on a wedding. Is he going to be mevatel the wedding if he wasn't sure what he's doing? So must be he's believed, and we can take away her ksuba. On Rav Yosef Ma'ika Mashmalan. Again, what's the chiddush? Tanina. Ha'oichel eitzel chami b'Yehuda shlo be'edim. Now, in Judea, Chassanim were suspected of sleeping with their kalas even before Nisuin. They gave them kiddushin, and there was always a concern in Judea. They were, I guess, very loose. So if you went to eat lunch at your father-in-law's house, you better bring edim. Otherwise, if later on when you get married, you're going to come to Bez and say she's not a basula, we're going to not believe you, because we're going to say, yeah, she's not a basula because you slept with her. So, but in the Galil where that doesn't happen, he could make a time. Now, Lomai, Elo Israel, if it's to Aser, Biuda Milo. So if he knows that he had relations with her and she was a Bu'ula, and therefore she was Nivla Be'isr, why wouldn't there be a claim in Judea also to Aser? Elalav Lavsida Ksubasa. In Galil, the claim must be to cause her to lose the Ksuba. And what kind of taina? Udikatoin taina, my love, the katoin taina is Pesach Pasua. The claim he was claiming was that during relations I felt her to be open. Lo, the katoin taina is damim. It's still not a proof that you can cause her to lose her ksuba. It's only isser, but not ksuba loss. Shulchan Aruch says, or the Rambam says, and Shulchan Aruch says as well, hatoin shabal A man comes and says, I had relations with her, I don't think she's a basula. If he also says he didn't find blood, and she doesn't have some kind of disease, famine, or a certain, so then it's a good claim. Bein shi gedola ktana, nara bogeres. So if it's a combination of lack of blood and Pesach Pasuach, then he's believed. But vim toin tana Pesach Pasuach only. So in bogeres he toilim. Shemach maskein lo hirgish aisa besula. We just suspend the vim ena bogeres arezu taina. Vafilo matzadam. Yeshom shekol shematzadam filo ena bogeres ena yochol tanta Pesach Pasuach. If you find blood, then no claim can be made that a Pesach Pasuach based on his testimony. Okay. Tomorrow, 6:30. Tomorrow night, 9:30 Navi. Everybody should have a good Shabbos. And of course, Tzvichai Ben Alina should have a refuah shleim.